What's going on, Bears fans? So I'm here today to give my top 5 free agent targets I would like to see the Chicago Bears go after. We're going to get into it all and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right. So first of all, let me know how you guys have been enjoying these videos from me, C-Dub, and Bobby on our respective top 5 free agent target lists. Some overlap there, not as much as one would think, but that's a good thing. That way we're covering more prospects. But let's go ahead and jump off the list. The first one is one that I think all Bears fans want. That's De'Aaron Payne. 25 years old, 32 solo tackles, 11 and a half sacks. When you look at bringing him in, yes, it could get costly for the Chicago Bears, but the Bears could potentially transform their complete defensive line in just 2 moves. If they do end up drafting Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, you pair that next to Payne, and you have a young, scrappy, tough defensive line that you can build around for years and years to come. And De'Aaron Payne he brings the it factor a lot for the Chicago Bears. An area of need that we have, our inability to pressure the quarterback consistently, things like that. Like, he brings that and can change that and transform it almost right away. Now, the biggest question to that remains, is he going to re-sign with the Commanders, things like that. But I look at De'Aaron Payne and saying, hey, this is a player that I would love to have in a Chicago Bears uniform to help transform that defensive line and to bring some more talent to that front seven that I hope that Ryan Poles is going to be focused on bringing overall this offseason. So he is definitely number 1 on my list there. Number 2, Orlando Brown. And if you can't tell, defensive line, offensive line, there's 2 things that we need to address early on. And with the offensive line, unlike the defensive line, we need a lot of talent there. I want us to see a mix of veterans and young players. That's why I bring in a player like De'Aaron Payne, who's still 25, but has been in the NFL since 2018 and is very young. But then you add in a young learning player, whether it is Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, or some other draft prospects that we'll cover next week. Those are just bringing that into the defensive line. And I want to see the same mix of youth and veteran leadership on that offensive line as well. And you look at Orlando Brown Jr., 26 years old. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's been fairly durable over the course of his NFL career. The biggest question with him remains is just what size contract is he going to want in free agency? Everything that I kind of look at Sport Track. According to Sport Track right now, they're expecting him to get an average salary of $22 million. That's crazy. But the Bears, who have tons of capital, if they want to spend that on bringing in somebody, and I get it. I know a lot of people have some issues with him and things like that, but in his production. But I look at him as somebody who isn't going to allow very many sacks. He definitely can come in and help protect Justin Fields, which is one of the biggest things that we need to try to do this offseason is add protection around our quarterback in Justin Fields. So I look at Orlando Brown Jr., and I feel like he can give that. Like I said, 26 years old, again, fits that younger timeline, a player that even if you do end up paying, you can see him being with the Chicago Bears roster for years to come, at least 3-5 years, if not more, on the NFL level that he can compete at a high level with before you have to worry about him start breaking down. At least hopefully the biggest question with him is that salary. Are the Bears going to be willing to pay that salary for a player that, even though he's been really good over the course of his career, there is some things that you can look at this season and say, I don't know if the production necessarily matches what he's going to get out there in the open market. Now, another one that I'm going to mention here is Javon Hargrave with the Philadelphia Eagles, another defensive tackle. This is another guy who 8 sacks, 46 tackles, and a forced fumble in 12 games. Again, this is something that we can definitely look at him bringing in some production. He played 72% of the team's defensive snaps. So again, a player that that's fairly durable over the course of the season. Now, he is a little bit older. He is 29 years old. So again, you'd be bringing him in and hopefully pairing him with, like I said, a Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, and them really be him to take the pressure off them as they're learning their role, developing into the player that we want them to be. But I look at Javon Hargrave as definitely a player that I would not mind at all him being a player that we go out and get. Again, another one, the size of the contract is a big question there. The market value for him, according to Sport Track, is about $20 million average per year. Again, so if depending on what you can negotiate with him on that contract, again, these Sport Tracks projections are just the value of the contract that they can get up to. So not necessarily saying that that's what they're going to expect. Nobody's heard anything like that. But when you look at him, he's good on the run defense. He's a solid pass rusher as well. So he brings in both of those skill sets, and it could go right into Matt Eberflus's defensive scheme pretty easily. You look at what Matt Eberflus tried to do, or what Ryan Poles tried to do last season in bringing in Larry Ogunjobi. So you look at Darren Payne, Javon Hargrave as players that can fit in and slide into those positions, maybe not get the same contract that we were offering Larry Ogunjobi, but again, something that you can definitely look forward to. Next one on my list is Tremaine Edmonds. Now, Bobby did cover him pretty heavily on his one, but this is a linebacker, 24 years old, that can come in and immediately make an impact, immediately almost transform your defense and that front seven in a meaningful way. And you look at the Chicago Bears, and with this list, is not necessarily saying these are players that I think they're gonna all go out and sign. But when you look at what he's able to do, young, 24 years old, he's been in the NFL for 5 years, so he still brings a veteran. And if you notice something, a theme in my list, it's bringing in players that aren't over 30, but are still young enough to be on this team for a handful of years, or in the sense of Javon Hargrave, at least for 3 years, something like that. But Tremaine Edwards is a player that I think people don't really understand the impact that he had. 66 solo tackles in 100 total tackles in 13 games, 66 solo tackles, 1 sack in a game like that, 1 interception he had on the season. This guy can come in, slide in with other improvements. I'm not saying that he alone transforms it, but it definitely a step in that right direction. And a player that I don't think is going to necessarily garner a huge contract in free agency. You're still going to have to pay him, right? Nobody's saying you're getting any of these players on the cheap, but this is a player that you can come in, bring in at a position of need that can instantly help out on that team. And him and Jack Sanborn, listen, I tell you what, you got playmaking in that linebacker core at that point. Definitely like that. Definitely like the potential of him. And I would not be mad at all if he ends up being one of the signings here. Now, last one on my top 5 list is Elgton Jenkins, if I'm pronouncing that, a guard, played with the Green Bay Packers. He's only given up 3 sacks this year. He's durable. He's played in 84% of Green Bay snaps. He's only 26 years old. And he can be signed for a multi-year deal and be a huge player for several years to come for the Chicago Bears. So again, falling in line with what kind of my mindset is on what I want to see the Bears do in free agency, bring in players that are young enough to kind of fit the timeline of this core and be here for a while as we're really trying to build something. We don't want, in my opinion, and what the Bears are doing or need to do in free agency is not go in and sign a bunch of people that in 1-2 years, you're going to have to look for a replacement in. Bring in players that can be on your team for 3 to 5 years as we try to build this out, get to being a playoff contender, and then hopefully a Super Bowl team. These are all players that some, of course, are going to garner higher contracts than the other, but they're definitely players that you can look at. A sports track for him, they have the market value for him being $7.1 million. That's not a high salary at all. You look at bringing in somebody who's played 84% of the snaps, is durable, only 26 years old. Again, it falls right in line with things that I want, and kind of very similar in the things that I said to Orlando Brown. I'll tell you what, if for some way they end up getting Jenkins and Orlando Brown this offseason, you're looking instantly at an offensive line, and hopefully Braxton Jones develops some over the season. You look at Larry Borum and things like that. That can be an offensive line that instantly protects Justin Fields considerably better than what we had last season. So that's my list. To go over it again, Darren Payne, Orlando Brown, Javon Hargrave, Tremaine Edmonds, and Elgton Jenkins are the players that I would like to see the Bears target when free agency does open. Let us know your thoughts down below. Tell us some free agents that you like to see the Bears go after. That's my list. I can't wait to hear your list, but that's it. Make sure you're following the show at Shy Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text and our voicemail for our mailbag episodes, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related. Like I liked in everything on Bear Down, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.